He laughed. Right there. In front of everyone. In the lobby that smelled of money and marble. The CEO's voice echoed off the polished floor. Sharp. Cruel. Loud enough to stop the elevators. All because the janitor dropped a bucket. Water spilled. Mops clattered. And the CEO smirked like he had won something. The janitor froze. His hands trembled. His shoulders tightened. His heart sank, then buried itself deeper. But he said nothing. Just bowed his head. Picked up the bucket. And kept cleaning. The CEO walked away. Smiling. He didn't know someone was watching. Someone who mattered. Someone who would remember. And he didn't know the truth he had just laughed at. A truth with weight. A truth with history. A truth that would destroy his world. Because that janitor wasn't just a janitor. Not even close. And the CEO's downfall had already begun. The janitor arrived before dawn. Every day. No excuses. No complaints. He wiped desks executives never thanked him for. Polished floors no one noticed. Cleaned up after people who treated him like a ghost. He moved quietly. Always quiet. Too quiet. But his silence wasn't weakness. It was survival. He had learned that years ago. In a place he never talked about. In a life he tried to bury. But the past doesn't stay dead. Not when it carries scars. Not when it carries names. He checked his watch. Old. Scratched. The only thing he kept from the life he'd left behind. Every time he looked at it, pain returned. But so did purpose. He worked not for himself, but for someone who deserved more. Someone who had been taken from him. Too soon. Too violently. Too unfairly. And the CEO? The man who mocked him? He had no idea how close that pain was. How connected their worlds had once been. How tightly fate had wrapped them together. Not yet. The CEO strutted through the office like he owned the air. Arrogant. Loud. Hungry for applause that no one genuinely gave. He ruled with fear. Not respect. People smiled when he passed. But only because they had to. Only because one wrong expression could end a career. He loved that. Power fed him. Control thrilled him. Cruelty entertained him. So when he saw the janitor that morning, quiet, tired, bent over, he saw something easy to destroy. And he did. He mocked the man's uniform. His shoes. His age. Every word dipped in poison. Every insult loud enough to gather a crowd. But the janitor just kept cleaning. Silent. Still. Focused. That bothered the CEO. Where was the fear? Where was the trembling? Where was the apology? He wanted to break him. But he didn't know the truth. The janitor had survived worse. Much worse. The company was preparing for a major press event. Huge. Global. Career-defining. The CEO bragged about it every hour. Said it would cement his legacy. Said it would put the company on the map. Said no one was more important than him. He never noticed who truly kept the building running. He never noticed the small things. The quiet things. The people he stepped on. But someone else did. Security watched. HR listened. Staff whispered. The CEO's cruelty wasn't new. But this time felt different. He crossed a line. The wrong line. With the wrong person. People felt it. Even if they didn't understand why. The janitor pushed his cart into the elevator. The doors closed slowly. He looked at his reflection. A man worn by years. By grief. By a truth he kept buried. His eyes hardened. The CEO had no idea what he had triggered. No idea what was coming. No idea who he had mocked. Not yet. But he would. The janitor finished mopping the lobby. Slow strokes. Steady breathing. Eyes lowered. But inside. A storm. He wiped a small streak of water from the floor. Perfect. Everything he touched was perfect. Always. He had been trained that way. Long before he ever held a mop. Long before life tore everything apart. He pushed his cart down the hallway. Staff shifted aside. Some nodded. Some looked away. Everyone liked him. Everyone respected him. Everyone, except the CEO. The CEO liked power. He liked dominance. He liked seeing someone lower. A janitor was easy prey. But he didn't know the truth in those hands. The discipline. The history. The sharpness hidden under silence. He didn't know what the janitor used to be. Or what he used to carry. Not yet. The office buzzed. Quiet. Nervous. The CEO was in rare form. Snapping. Pacing. Firing orders like bullets. He was stressed. The press event was close. Investors were arriving. The board was watching. Any weakness could expose him. Any mistake could be fatal. So he took it out on the staff. He barked at assistants. Insulted managers. Shamed interns. Until everything felt tense. Brittle. Breakable. And then, like a spark, someone whispered in the break room. He went too far this time. With who? The janitor. Seriously? Yeah. In front of everybody. A silence followed. People exchanged glances. Not normal glances. Worried ones. Because everyone knew the janitor. Everyone liked him. Everyone felt something protective around him. And everyone knew. The CEO didn't know what he had done. Something was coming. They felt it. They just didn't know from where. It began small. A missing file. A strange security log. A flagged message. Little things. Barely noticed. But connected. IT found something strange. The janitor was logged into a restricted floor 2 nights ago. Alone. Late. Security pulled footage. The janitor pushing his cart. Calm. Focused. But then, something odd. He paused. Looked directly at the camera. Not lost. Not confused. Deliberate. Almost like a warning. Security replayed it. Twice. 3 times. The janitor never looked at cameras. Never. He avoided attention. Why look then? They didn't know. Not yet. But the footage felt heavy. Like a clue. Like a fuse. Like the beginning of something the CEO would not survive. Lunch hour arrived. Staff gathered quietly. Voices low. Energy strange. The CEO stormed through the cafeteria. Perfume of power. Suit too perfect. Smile too sharp. He spotted the janitor near a vending machine. Alone. Unmoving. The CEO smirked. Walked straight toward him. Ready for round 2. The room tensed. Forks paused midair. Conversations cut in half. The CEO drew closer. Confident. Mocking. Predatory. Then, a voice interrupted him. A manager. Concerned. Rushed. Sir, the board is asking for you. The CEO frowned. Annoyed. But turned away. He didn't see the janitor's subtle exhale. Or the way his hands clenched. Or the flicker of pain behind his calmness. He wasn't ready for the truth. What the janitor carried. What he knew. What he had kept hidden. But it was coming. Slow. Relentless. Inevitable. Like justice. Night fell. The building emptied. Lights dimmed. Silence took over. The janitor walked into the basement storage room. A room almost no one used. Almost no one remembered. He opened a small metal box. Inside. An old photograph. Edges torn. Colors fading. A younger version of himself. Standing beside a man. A man with a familiar smile. A dangerous smile. A smile the janitor had seen today. The CEO. Only younger. Colder. Sharper. And behind them. A project. A disaster. A tragedy. Something the CEO buried. Something everyone forgot. Something the janitor could never erase. His hands trembled. Not from fear. From memory. From loss. From the night everything was destroyed. Because of that man. And tomorrow, the world would finally learn the truth. Here comes part 10, where the story crosses into its first major twist, dark, emotional, and justice-driven, keeping Nest pacing tight and cinematic. Morning hit hard. The office buzzed with fear. A strange email had gone out. Anonymous. Short. Sharp. Deadly. It read. The CEO lied. Check the archives. Check Project Falcon. No signature. No clues. Just those words. 3 lines. 3 bombs. The board panicked. IT scrambled. Security locked down the servers. The CEO stormed into the conference room. Furious. Breathing hard. Trying to look in control. But he wasn't. He knew that name. That project. The one he buried. The one he swore would never surface. His past. His secret. His sin. He glared at his directors. Find who sent it. His voice cracked on the word. Find. Cracked. Staff noticed. Directors noticed. Everyone noticed. A man like him didn't crack. Not unless he was hiding something big. Downstairs, the janitor polished the handrails. Slow. Methodical. Focused. He watched people rush past. Panicked. Confused. Electric with rumors. They whispered again. Project Falcon? What even is that? Why does he look scared? Did we get hacked? The janitor continued working. Quiet. Invisible. But his silence had weight now. Purpose. Direction. Every step the CEO took. Every order he barked. Every frantic email he sent. The janitor watched it unravel. He had waited years for this moment. Justice moves slow. Painfully slow. But when it is ready, it is unstoppable. The board demanded answers. Real answers. Not excuses. What is Project Falcon? Why was it hidden? Why were reports destroyed? Why is your name all over unauthorized documents? The CEO sweated. Visible. Embarrassing. Unavoidable. He tried to lie. He tried to twist. He tried to charm. But the board wasn't buying it. They saw something cracking in him. Something dangerous. Something rotten. And then, the bomb dropped. The head of compliance slid a file across the table. A thick one. Old papers. Signatures. Permits. Redacted lines. Someone left this outside our office door this morning. Left. Not emailed. Not hacked. Left. Hand-delivered. No fingerprints. No camera footage. No trace. Except one detail. A faint smell of disinfectant on the folder. The same brand used by janitorial staff. The CEO froze. Completely. His stomach twisted. His throat tightened. His world shrank. No. It couldn't be. Impossible. Not him. Not that man. Not the janitor. Not the person he mocked. Not the person he broke. Because if it was him, if the janitor knew, if the janitor remembered, the CEO's career wasn't just at risk. His freedom was. The CEO rushed out of the boardroom, nearly stumbling. He searched the halls, panicked eyes scanning every corner. He found the janitor near the main staircase, polishing banisters. Calm. Steady. Unbothered. Too unbothered. The CEO's breath hitched. A memory flashed. Quick. Violent. The same hands. Years ago. In a different building. Holding a different clipboard. Not in a janitor's uniform. Not cleaning. But supervising. Leading. Investigating. He remembered now. He remembered those eyes. The janitor had not always been a janitor. He had once been something else. Something powerful. Something the CEO hated. Something the CEO feared. An auditor. A federal investigator. A watchdog assigned to Project Falcon. The one man who almost exposed him. The one man he ruined. The CEO's heart dropped into his stomach. That's why the janitor never looked afraid. That's why he never reacted. He wasn't powerless. He wasn't fragile. He wasn't beneath the CEO. He was waiting. Waiting for the day the truth would rise. And today was that day. The CEO stepped closer. Too close. Trying to hide his trembling. "You," he breathed. The janitor didn't look up. Just wiped another rail. Slow. Quiet. "You're behind this." A pause. Soft. Dangerous. The janitor lifted his head. Met the CEO's eyes. No fear. No anger. Just truth. The CEO's throat tightened. "You can't do this," he whispered. But it was too late. Justice had already taken root. The janitor turned away. Calm. Silent. That silence crushed the CEO more than any word ever could. Because now he knew. He hadn't laughed at a janitor. He had laughed at the man who would end him. His words hit the janitor like a slap. Not anger. Not shame. Just quiet. A quiet that felt heavier than the marble floors beneath them. The CEO didn't notice. Didn't care. He was too busy laughing at his own insult. But others noticed. A receptionist froze mid-step. A security guard looked away. An intern swallowed hard. Everyone felt it. The shift. The wrongness. But no one stepped in. Not yet. The janitor bent down. Picked up the broom. Moved to the corner. Slow. Steady. Unbroken. That bothered the CEO more than anger ever could. He wanted a reaction. He wanted a crack. He wanted proof that power still meant something. But he got nothing. Just calm. Just silence. Just the unsettling truth that the man he mocked didn't seem small at all. Rumors spread by noon. By lunch, the entire building whispered. He humiliated him, right in the lobby. He laughed like the janitor wasn't even human. Someone recorded it. The CEO didn't care. He felt untouchable. He always had. After all, he built himself up from nothing. Or so he told everyone. Story after story. Speech after speech. Interview after interview. The self-made king. But kings fall hardest when the truth arrives. And truth was walking straight toward him. The janitor slipped into the service elevator. Alone. Quiet. Focused. Not a single tremble in his hands. He wasn't weak. He wasn't timid. He wasn't broken. He was waiting. For the moment. For the right set of eyes. For the door that had stayed sealed for too long. Because floor 27 held more than offices. More than executives. More than glass walls and silent hallways. Floor 27 held the truth. And today, someone was finally ready to open it. The CEO reviewed quarterly reports. His mind somewhere between irritation and ego. But that rhythmic noise kept bothering him. A soft drag. A soft tap. Over and over. Steady. Slow. Deliberate. A broom sweeping the hallway outside his office. Again. Impossible. His assistant usually made sure janitorial staff never cleaned that floor during executive hours. But the sound grew louder. Closer. Inescapable. Drag. Tap. Drag. Tap. The CEO's pulse tightened. He rose from his chair. He opened the door. And froze. The janitor stood in the center of the hallway. Not sweeping. Just waiting. Looking at the CEO like he already knew the ending of a story the CEO thought he authored alone. "Why are you up here?" The CEO's voice cracked. The janitor stepped aside. Behind him, a wall-mounted portrait. The founder of the company. Stoic. Sharp. Serious. The CEO had seen the portrait millions of times. Used it in presentations. Talked about legacy. Talked about history. Talked about honoring the company roots. But today, the janitor's eyes weren't on the founder. They were on the small plaque beneath it. A plaque the CEO never bothered to read. A plaque now shining under the hallway lights. A plaque that carried one chilling line. A company built on the promise that every worker matters. The janitor touched the plaque with a worn hand. Then a soft, weighted sentence. You broke his promise. The CEO swallowed hard. That cold feeling crept up his spine. Because suddenly, the janitor didn't feel like a janitor. He felt like a mirror, reflecting everything the CEO didn't want to see. Everything he had buried. Everything he pretended didn't exist. Everything he feared would finally rise. And it had. Floor 27 cameras blinked awake. Security watching. Staff watching. Whispers rising. This moment spread like fire. The CEO's mask slipped. His posture cracked. His confidence trembled. In front of one man. One broom. One truth. The janitor stepped closer. Slow. Measured. Unshaken. Do you know what your father told me? His voice low. Heavy. Precise. The CEO blinked. My father? The janitor nodded once. He said the worst thing a man can forget is where he came from. The CEO staggered back. Because no one knew that. No one knew he hid his upbringing. No one knew he buried the truth. No one knew he rewrote his story. His father worked maintenance at a factory. A quiet man. A disciplined man. A man who taught him respect. A man he abandoned when success arrived. A man he stopped calling. Stopped visiting. Stopped acknowledging. The CEO wanted everyone to believe he rose from brilliance alone. Not from a hard-working parent with rough hands and a gentle voice. But the janitor, this quiet, steady man, spoke as if he'd lived inside the memory. How do you know him? The CEO whispered. The hallway held its breath. And the janitor dropped the truth like thunder. Because I worked beside him for 20 years. The CEO's knees weakened. The world spun. His chest tightened. Because the janitor standing before him was not a stranger, not a nobody, not a man beneath him, but the last living link to the only man who ever truly believed in him. The CEO's breath stuttered. His father. The man he left behind. The man he pretended never existed. Standing in front of him now, a piece of that man. A witness to his truest past. The janitor's eyes softened. He talked about you every day. The CEO flinched. Every day. He kept every article you were mentioned in. The CEO's throat closed. He kept your first business card in his wallet until the day he died. Silence. Heavy. Crushing. Breaking something deep inside him. The hallway felt colder. Smaller. Too tight for the truth. The CEO leaned against the wall, trembling. His voice barely made it out. Why didn't anyone tell me? The janitor lowered his broom. He tried calling. A beat. He tried visiting. Another beat. He stood in your lobby for 3 hours one winter, just to say he was proud of you. The CEO closed his eyes. Pain hit like a tidal wave. A pain he earned. A pain he deserved. And you walked right past him. The janitor whispered. You didn't even look. The CEO collapsed into a chair in the hallway. A powerful man, reduced to a child. A child who abandoned the only person who ever loved him without conditions. But the janitor wasn't here to punish him. He wasn't here to humiliate. He wasn't here to drag him through the pain of the past. He was here for something else. Something heavier. Something deeper. A truth the CEO never saw coming. He left me something. The janitor murmured. For you. The CEO's eyes shot open. A small envelope appeared, worn, creased, yellowed with time. His father's handwriting on the front. Uneven. Familiar. Painful to look at. To my son. When he's ready. The CEO's chest caved in. He wasn't ready. Not then. Not now. Maybe never. But the truth didn't wait for readiness. It waited for reckoning. The janitor placed the envelope gently on the CEO's lap and stepped back, giving him room, giving him breath, giving him the moment he avoided for a lifetime. The CEO stared at the envelope. His hands wouldn't move. His heart wouldn't settle. His mind wouldn't stop replaying every moment. He chose to forget the man who raised him. Finally, with shaking fingers, he opened it. A single letter. Folded twice. Edges fragile. The handwriting hit him like a punch. Son, I know you're busy. I know life is taking you places I never dreamed of. But I want you to remember one thing. You are only as great as the way you treat people who can give you nothing. The CEO's tears hit the paper. If you become a man who steps on others, you will lose yourself before you ever lose your title. And if you ever forget where we came from, find someone who knew me. They will remind you of the truth. The CEO broke. Fully. Openly. Uncontrollably. He clutched the letter to his chest. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel powerful. He didn't feel admired. He didn't feel untouchable. He felt human. A son who realized too late what he had thrown away. The janitor stood silently, watching a man crumble in the ruins of his own pride. But justice wasn't cruelty. Not here. Justice was truth. And truth, finally, had been delivered. When the CEO finally looked up, his voice was raw. What do I do now? The janitor didn't answer. Not with words. He simply placed the broom into the CEO's hands. A symbolic weight. A reminder. A lesson his father tried to teach. The CEO held it like a lifeline. Like a confession. Like redemption waiting to be earned. The janitor whispered, "Start here." Then he walked away, leaving the CEO alone, in the hallway where he once mocked a man, and found the truth that shattered him. The broom felt heavy in his hands. Heavier than his title. Heavier than every award on his office wall. It wasn't just wood. It was a mirror, showing him everything he'd become. He stared at the bristles. Simple. Unimportant. Ignored. Just like the people he stepped over. Just like the man who raised him. He stood. Slowly. Almost afraid the ground would reject him. The hallway stretched long and silent. Every polished tile reflecting the person he didn't want to see anymore. He took one breath. Then another. And he swept. The CEO of a major company. Sweeping a hallway he once strutted through with arrogance. Each stroke scraped the floor. Each scrape echoed something buried. Guilt. Regret. Memory. He kept sweeping. His movements were stiff at first. Too controlled. Too practiced. But after a moment, his shoulders dropped. The broom moved smoother. Softer. Cleaner. Like he was brushing away more than dust. Like he was sweeping a lifetime of ego out of himself. Employees began to appear. One by one. Eyes wide. Confused. Some whispered. Some stared openly. Some slowed their steps to watch the impossible unfold. The CEO didn't look up. Didn't defend himself. Didn't explain. Didn't hide. He just kept sweeping. And for the first time in his career, he wasn't performing. He was actually working. A quiet work. A humble work. A necessary work. Someone approached from behind. Soft footsteps. Reluctant. Nervous. A woman in a navy blazer. HR director. Always composed. Always polished. But now, her voice trembled. "Sir, is everything all right?" He paused. Just long enough for the dust to settle around him. Then he answered with a single breath. "No." It wasn't an admission of weakness. It was an admission of truth. The hallway fell silent again. The HR director didn't push. Didn't pry. She simply nodded. As if she understood more than he expected. Word spread fast. Faster than meetings. Faster than memos. faster than gossip ever had. The CEO was cleaning the building. Not because of punishment. Not because of a PR stunt. Not because someone made him. But because he needed to. Because something broke. And something else was trying to grow in its place. Employees stepped aside to give him room. Some offered small smiles. Some watched in quiet shock. One janitor, the oldest one, stopped beside him. A man with gray stubble and tired eyes. He whispered, almost afraid to interrupt. "You missed a spot." The CEO looked up. Then nodded. And swept again. Hours passed. The CEO cleaned corridors, staircases, glass doors. He wiped fingerprints he never cared about. Picked up trash he never noticed. Scrubbed scuff marks he always walked past. Each action stripped away another layer of arrogance. Another mask. Another lie. And slowly, the building grew brighter. But more importantly, so did he. By evening, his hands were raw. His sleeves were dusty. His hair was out of place. He never looked less like a CEO. And never felt more like a man. When the last hallway was done, he leaned on the broom. Breathing slow. Deep. Changed. He turned, and saw the janitor standing at the end of the hallway. Watching. Waiting. Not judging. Not mocking. Just present. The CEO walked toward him. Step by step. No pride left to hide behind. When he reached him, the janitor gently took the broom back. "Good start." The CEO swallowed hard. A small, broken smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "I want to do more." The janitor nodded. "You will." Then he stepped aside. And the CEO walked past him. Not above him. Not ahead of him. Just beside him. For the first time in his life. Night settled over the building. The halls dimmed. Computers slept. But the CEO couldn't leave. Something held him there. A weight. A question he didn't know how to ask. He followed the janitor down the quiet corridor. Their footsteps soft. Uneven. Heavy with things unsaid. The janitor unlocked the supply room. A small space. Cramped. Smelling of cleaning fluid and years of forgotten labor. He stepped inside. The CEO paused in the doorway. Memories swirled. Fragments. Shadows. He didn't know why he felt it. But the room felt familiar. Too familiar. The janitor placed the broom gently against the wall. Then turned. His eyes held something. Not anger. Not pity. Truth. The CEO stood straight. Shoulders tense. Pulse tight in his throat. The janitor breathed in. Slow. Deep. "You used to be here." The words hit like a crack in the walls. A blade slipped between old memories. The CEO blinked. Mind scrambling. Searching. But the janitor continued. "You were a kid. Tiny. Always waiting on your father." The floor shook under him. He knew that tone. He knew that story. His father. The man who worked night shifts. The man who disappeared before sunrise. The man who came home exhausted and quiet. The man he never understood. The janitor's voice softened. This was his room. The CEO's breast shattered. He stumbled back until his shoulder hit the doorframe. Images rushed in. His father's boots. His father's hands. His father's tired smile. The CEO's throat closed. He whispered, "No." The janitor nodded. "Yes." The world tilted. He felt like a child again. Standing in a doorway. Watching a man clean messes no one thanked him for. The CEO pressed his palm to the wall. As if he could feel the past still alive beneath the paint. "He worked here?" His voice barely made it out. The janitor nodded again. "For 26 years. The room spun. He couldn't catch his breath. He had spent decades running from the life that raised him. The life that built him. The life he buried in embarrassment and pride. And now, the truth was staring right into him. The janitor stepped closer. Gentle. Respectful. He was a good man. The CEO's eyes burned. He had spent years mocking the very work that fed him. Mocking the hands that kept him clothed. Mocking the job that kept him alive. The guilt hit like a tidal wave. He sank into the chair in the corner. The same chair his father once sat in. Exhausted. Invisible. The CEO's body shook. Not from shame alone, but from loss. He whispered, so broken it barely held shape. I didn't know. The janitor placed a steady hand on his shoulder. You forgot. Silence filled the room. Thick. Heavy. Honest. Tears slid down the CEO's face. Quiet. Unhidden. Real. He had mocked the janitor. He had mocked the staff. He had mocked the work. And all along, he had been mocking his own father. The janitor squeezed his shoulder. He was proud of you. Even when you left him behind. The CEO collapsed into grief. Shoulders shaking. Hands trembling. Heart cracking open for the first time in years. He cried for the father he didn't respect. For the childhood he wanted to erase. For the arrogance that blinded him. The janitor didn't move. Didn't rush him. Didn't judge. He simply stood there. Silent. Steady. Until the CEO finally lifted his head. Eyes swollen. Face raw. What do I do now? The janitor answered softly. You clean what you broke. Inside and out. The words cut deep. But also healed. And as the CEO stood, something in him shifted. Pride broke. Humility rose. Truth returned. He wiped his eyes. Straightened his back. And whispered, I will. The janitor nodded. Then let's begin. Because this wasn't the end of the story. It was only the beginning of his justice. Morning light crept into the building. Pale. Soft. Almost hesitant. The CEO didn't sleep. He couldn't. He walked the halls before dawn. Quiet. Alone. Tracing every corner his father once cleaned. Every trash bin. Every doorknob. Every forgotten smudge. Each one felt like a confession. And a promise. He reached the lobby. Stood there. Breathing slowly. Today mattered. He knew exactly what he had to do. Employees entered the building. One by one. Coffee cups. Briefcases. Half-awake chatter. Then they froze. The CEO stood at the front desk. No suit jacket. No tie. No armor. Just a plain shirt. Rolled sleeves. Hands clasped in front of him. Waiting. Eyes lifted. Brows creased. Murmurs spread like wildfire. What was he doing? Why was he here? What had happened? They gathered. Dozens. Then more. A quiet circle forming around him. The CEO lifted his head. And spoke. Short. Steady. Unfiltered. I've been wrong. A ripple shot through the crowd. Wrong? A CEO admitting fault? In public? He continued. I disrespected people I should have honored. His gaze swept the staff. All departments. All roles. All levels. I forgot where I came from. Silence tightened around him. No excuses. No legal padding. No PR spin. Just truth. I lost sight of what matters. Of who matters. The janitors stood in the back. Hands still in their pockets. Eyes watching. Processing. The CEO drew in a deep, shaking breath. My father worked in this building. As one of you. Gasps. Shock. Widened eyes. Some people glanced at the older janitor. He didn't react. He just listened. He died before I understood the weight of his work. And I've spent years dishonoring everything he stood for. The CEO swallowed hard. I'm done pretending I'm above anyone in this company. A pause. Heavy. Real. Starting today, everything changes. He turned. Walked toward the janitorial team. Every step slow. Measured. Humbling. He stopped in front of them. Face open. Voice low. I'm sorry. The words cracked in the air. Sharp. Unexpected. Human. One of the younger janitors blinked fast. Another covered her mouth. Someone sniffed. Apologies like this didn't happen in their world. Not from a man like him. Not from a title like his. Not ever. But the CEO wasn't finished. He looked at the older janitor. The one who knew his father. The one who held the final truth. Please, help me make it right. The older janitor studied him. Quiet. Unmoved by drama. But moved by sincerity. Then he nodded. All right. And with that single word, the room exhaled. But one person didn't. A man in the corner. Arms crossed. Jaw tight. The operations director. The one who always despised the janitorial team. The one who fed the CEO's arrogance. The one who encouraged cuts, insults, and humiliation. His eyes burned with anger. This was not the plan he wanted. He stepped forward. Voice sharp. Control slipping. This is ridiculous. You're embarrassing the company. You're embarrassing yourself. Heads whipped toward him. The director sneered. They're janitors. Not partners. Not leaders. Not anything we owe. But he never finished. Because the older janitor stepped forward. Calm. Unshaken. Firm. You owe more than you think. The director scoffed. Oh, please. And what would you know? The older janitor pulled something from his pocket. Thin. Folded. Old. A badge. Worn edges. Faded plastic. He held it up. And the CEO's breath vanished. It was his father's ID. Old photo. Tired eyes. Gentle smile. The director's face strained. Because taped to the back was a note. Written in faded blue ink. Just 6 words. 6 quiet, devastating words. My son will rise above me. The CEO's knees buckled. His chest caved. Air left him like a punch. The older janitor handed the badge to him. Slow. Respectful. He kept it with him every day. Even when you left. Even when things were hard. The CEO ran his thumb over the handwriting. Tears welled. Body trembling. My son will rise above me. But he didn't rise. He climbed. And forgot. Until now. The director panicked. This means nothing. He was just. The CEO snapped his head up. Eyes sharp. Voice quiet but lethal. Finish that sentence. The director froze. For the first time, the CEO looked like a leader. A real one. Not built from ego. Built from truth. The CEO stepped closer. You belittled the people who built this company. Who cleaned it. Protected it. Kept it alive. The director swallowed hard. And starting today, you don't work here anymore. Gasps erupted. The director stuttered. But security was already moving. The CEO didn't look away. He didn't apologize for the decision. Didn't soften it. Didn't negotiate. Justice wasn't a speech. It was action. And it finally arrived. As the director was escorted out, employees stepped back. Some nodding. Some whispering. Some watching the CEO with new eyes. He wasn't feared anymore. He was respected. The janitors looked at each other. Soft disbelief in their faces. Relief. Hope. The older janitor turned to the CEO. You ready for the rest? The CEO exhaled. Yes. Because justice wasn't complete yet. Not even close. And the next step would change everything. The building felt different now. Shifted. Awake. Like it had been holding its breath for years. The director was gone. But the damage he left behind still lingered. The CEO knew that. Felt that. And the janitor standing beside him felt it too. He motioned for the CEO to follow. Down the stairs. Past the lobby. Into the service wing most executives never visited. Cold tiles. Faint humming. walls that held decades of quiet suffering. The janitor opened a door. A small break room. Worn couches. Old tables. A microwave missing its handle. And on the wall, a faded paper chart. Schedules. Holidays. Birthdays. Overtime. Missed overtime. Underpaid overtime. Notes, scribbled in frustration. Requests denied. Shifts doubled without warning. The CEO stepped inside. Eyes scanning every corner. Every forgotten detail. He felt something twist in his chest. This was the reality they lived in. Every day. Every night. Silently. Without thanks. The janitor spoke softly. This is what he carried. The CEO's throat tightened. He touched the chart. Ran his fingers over his father's name. Over the dates. Over the long hours. Hours he never appreciated. Never even asked about. He worked Christmas? A whisper. He worked all holidays. A gentle reply. He worked my birthday. A crack in the voice. Every year. Silence stabbed the air. The CEO pressed his palm flat against the wall. As if he could rewind time. As if he could apologize to a man who wasn't here anymore. He missed everything because of us. The CEO breathed. No, the janitor corrected. He missed everything because of the people who forgot he mattered. The CEO swallowed. Hard. He turned. I was one of them. The janitor didn't argue. Truth didn't need polishing. They stepped back into the hallway. A few employees lingered nearby. Watching. Listening. One woman from the morning shift approached. Her voice thin. Nervous. Sir, why are you doing all this? The CEO looked at her. Really looked. Not at her badge. Not at her title. At her. I want this company to look like the people who make it run. Her eyes softened. She nodded. A small smile flickered. Another employee came closer. Then another. Curiosity shifting into something else. Hope. The janitor stood slightly behind the CEO. Arms crossed. A quiet presence. He watched the CEO's posture. The honesty in his eyes. The absence of ego. He nodded once to himself. The man was changing. But justice wasn't done yet. There were files. Records. Reports the director buried. Complaints ignored. Raises denied. Harassment brushed off. The janitor knew where they were. He led the CEO to the back office. Locked. Dusty. Unseen. He handed him a ring of old keys. Your turn. The CEO took them. A small metallic weight that felt heavier than truth. He unlocked the door. The light flickered on. Stacks of binders. Folders packed tight. Hidden for years. He opened the first one. And froze. Dozens of written complaints. All from janitorial staff. All dismissed. Reasons scribbled in red ink. Unnecessary. Overreacting. Not important. No action needed. The CEO closed the binder. Jaw tight. He opened another. And another. Each one worse. More neglect. More cruelty. More power abused. His hands shook. This is criminal. Yes, the janitor said. Calm. But hurting too. He protected himself. Not the company. Not the people. The CEO felt heat fill his body. Anger. Shame. Resolve. We're fixing every one of these. His voice didn't shake. Not this time. We're reopening all cases. All pay disputes. All denied raises. All harassment claims. The janitor stared at him. Searching for cracks. For performance. For ego. He found none. Good, he murmured. Then keep going. Hours passed. The CEO worked through every file. Every claim. Every silent plea for justice. His eyes burned. His back ached. His heart changed. In the doorway, employees watched. Not mocking. Not doubting. Witnessing. A leader undoing the damage he once ignored. But justice had one final stop. A place the CEO hadn't seen in decades. The basement workshop. Where broken things were repaired. Where his father once kept his tools. His little radio. His lunchbox. The janitor pushed open the door. A warm, dusty smell filled the air. Old wood. Metal. Oil. Memory. The CEO stepped inside. And his world stopped. There, on the far wall, hung a small wooden peg. With a single item resting on it. A keychain. Round. Metal. Scratched. He walked toward it. Slow. Like approaching a ghost. He lifted it gently. A small engraving caught the light. For my boy. His chest cracked open. Tears spilled. No stopping them now. He closed his fist around the keychain. Held it against his heart. His voice broke. He never stopped believing in me. The janitor's voice was soft. And now you can honor him. For real. The CEO nodded. Eyes closed. Breath shaking. He whispered, I will. The building seemed to exhale with him. Old weight leaving. New purpose rising. Justice wasn't just delivered today. It was inherited. Because this wasn't simply a story of a CEO and a janitor. It was a story of a son. Returning to the truth. One broken piece at a time. And the most important part was still coming. The door swung open. Light poured in. Harsh. White. Cold. The CEO blinked fast. His head throbbed. His tongue felt heavy. His chest burned with shame he couldn't understand yet. Then he heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Measured. Firm. They echoed like a verdict. He lifted his eyes. The janitor stood there. Calm. Still. Holding something in his hand. A file. A thin, worn file. The same one the CEO had dismissed earlier. Mocked. Laughed at. Now it felt heavier than a lawsuit. The janitor placed it on the table. Gently. Too gently. Like it wasn't a file. But a truth he'd carried for years. The CEO's throat tightened. The janitor opened the file and slid a single document forward. A certificate. An award. A government seal. A name. Recognition of national service. But not as a janitor. As an engineer. A brilliant one. A decorated one. A man who built systems the CEO's own company depended on. The CEO's fingers trembled as he traced the edges. His vision blurred. He looked up. The janitor wasn't angry. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just tired. A tired the CEO had never known. A tired built over years of humiliation and silence. The CEO's voice cracked. Words stuck in his chest. But the janitor spoke first. Short lines. Soft. Precise. You judged a uniform. The CEO swallowed hard. You never asked who I was. The CEO felt something fracture inside him. Something ugly. Something small he had built his whole identity on. Power. Status. Image. It broke like thin glass. The janitor continued. I worked in your industry before you ever stepped into it. A pause. I lost everything in one fire. Another pause. My wife. My daughter. My home. My research. The CEO froze. His lungs stilled. The janitor's eyes dropped for a moment, not in weakness, but in memory. Heavy memory. I started over. Quietly. With whatever job would keep me alive. Silence swallowed the room. The CEO's heartbeat thundered. He felt his world collapse. Not because he was trapped. Not because he had been exposed. But because he had finally seen the truth. The man he laughed at was stronger than him. Smarter than him. More human than him. The janitor slid one final photo across the table. A little girl. Smiling. Holding her father's hand. The CEO blinked fast, breath catching. She used to say, the janitor whispered, that people with kind hearts shine the brightest. His voice tightened. But you dim people for sport. The CEO's jaw trembled. He broke. Right there in that cold room. Right there under the weight of truth. Right there in front of the man he had belittled without knowing a single piece of his story. Tears gathered. Slow. Hot. The janitor stepped back. You still have time to fix what kind of man you want to be. The door opened again. A guard signaled. The janitor walked away. No victory. No smugness. No need for revenge. Just quiet justice. The CEO stared at the photo one last time. Something shifted in him. Something irreversibly deep. A vow formed in the hollow space where arrogance used to live. He would change. He would rebuild. He would start again. Not for his company. Not for his image. For the people he never bothered to see. The door closed. The room dimmed. But inside him, for the first time, a light turned on. A soft outro settled over the moment. A single truth lingering in the air like a final heartbeat. Sometimes, the lowest ranked person in the room is the one carrying the highest story.